In today's video, I'm going to show you how to repair jeans. I think it is 4 different ways. 1 almost invisible mend by hand, and 3 other techniques that you can do on your sewing machine. And as such, you can just choose which technique that you prefer, depending on which result you want and what tools you have available to you. And the machine techniques are 1 with a darning foot, and 1 is with a normal presser foot using the zigzag stitch, and then the 3rd technique is using a sort of darning stitch that I have on my machine that you can use together with the bottom hole presser foot. Hi, my name is Matilda and welcome back to Miss Matti, the channel where I show all about sewing, knitting, mending, and generally how to live an awesome and sustainable life. If that sounds like your cup of tea, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you will not miss any upcoming videos from me. And if you want to check out more mending videos from me, I will link my Mend with Matti series both in the cards as well as in the description down below. And if you do get inspired and make any of these mends, do not forget to tag me on Instagram at Miss Matti using the hashtag #MendWithMatti. As such, I can see it and I will love to see what you make from watching my videos. But now, without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Now I'm gonna show you how to make an almost invisible repair by hand. This pair of jeans I've had for a couple of years and is one of my favorites. It needs a couple of repairs like this hole on the back of the knee, as well as on the belt loops that are getting worn out in a way I don't like the look of. I also need to strengthen this bit at the top of the back pocket, as well as the most common repair I need to do on my jeans, which is repairing or strengthening the inner thigh or crotch area. To make this repair, you will need a small embroidery hoop, matching thread, spare denim to create a patch, and or fusible interfacing. You will also need an embroidery needle. We will start by repairing the hole at the back of the knee. I turn the leg inside out and pin the patch over the hole. Then I place the embroidery hoop securely in place by putting the inner hoop under the fabric and then press the outer hoop in place evenly onto the inner hoop. Make sure the fabric is taut before screwing in place. Then double thread a needle with matching thread. I will start by making vertical running stitches along the patch. Due to my patch's placement, I found it helpful to start by attaching my patch to my seam allowance with a row of running stitches, followed by whip stitches along the edge. Now I'm gonna start making the running stitches across the patch. Start by stitching at the bottom edge on one side, remove pins as you go. Create running stitches by pulling the needle up and down through both your jeans and the patch. You can do up to 3 to 5 stitches at the same time before pulling the needle through. Then continue creating vertical rows of running stitches across the patch. When your thread runs out, make sure to fasten properly by tying a knot and pull the remaining thread through the patch, but not the jeans, to hide it. Then snip off any excess threads. Then again, I double threaded the needle, tying a knot in the end, which I hid by pulling the needle in between the patch and the jeans up to the area where I fastened the previous stitch. Then continue to create running stitches until the whole patch is covered. Then I removed my embroidery hoop and turned my jeans leg out to the right side again and cut off any excess threads from the frayed area around the hole. After I did that, I pulled my needle through in between the jeans and the patch again towards the hole, and then put the embroidery hoop in place again, but with the inner hoop on the inside of the leg and the outer hoop on the right side of the fabric. I found it helpful at this stage to have a little extra give in the fabric. Once the hoop is in place, make running stitches across the hole and the frayed edges. Go back and forth and try to catch any threads that might be going across the hole, and then darn them in place. By going up and down every other thread on the next row, catch the thread you didn't catch in the previous row. Continue until you stitch across the whole hole, and then if you think it will create a stronger and or better looking finish, stitch in any direction you might need across the hole to pull it all in place. I found it helpful to stitch across horizontally over the hole only. Once you are satisfied with the look, fasten the threads. Now it's time to strengthen the fabric at the top edge of my pockets. At first I ironed on Fusible interfacing at the inside of my jeans at the worn-out area. At the same time I also made sure to give my previous repair a press to create a neat looking finish. Then I stitched over the worn-out area back and forth with small running stitches. I first stitched vertically, then I stitched across horizontally until I was happy with how it looked. Then it was time to tidy up the belt loops. I played this a little bit by ear depending on how worn out different areas were. On the more frayed and torn areas, I created small running stitches again vertically and then across the previous stitches horizontally. The side edges of the belt loops were slightly worn out as well, so I stitched along them creating small whip stitches. Depending on the wash of your jeans or how worn they are, you might want to use one or two closely matching threads to help you create a discreet repair. I also cut off any excess threads to create a neat and tidy look, but you can keep the frayed edges too if it suits the look of your jeans. And this is how my repaired belt loop turned out. Now it's time to repair the worn out areas on my inner thighs. I started by attaching Fusible interfacing on the wrong side of the worn out area. Normally this area on my jeans get way more worn out than this. Leave a comment below and let me know if you also have this issue. I place the worn out area in my embroidery hoop. If you just have tiny holes of fabric thinning, you can follow my instructions coming up. But if you have a bigger hole, I would follow my earlier instructions on attaching a patch. I found stitching along the bias back and forth was really helpful here, and combining that kind of stitching with running stitches vertically up and down. And now I've done the inner thighs of these jeans. To repair denim with a darning foot, you will need matching thread, spare denim to create a patch, and or Fusible interfacing, denim needles for your machine, as well as a darning foot. This is a pair of jeans that belongs to my husband and they have a hole in the crotch area. Cut your patch slightly bigger than the hole and or worn out area. I found it helpful to do this on top of my jeans. Then turn the jeans inside out and make sure the jeans lay flat and that the hole doesn't distort the shape. Then pin the patch in place. and then turn the jeans out again and place the pins on top of the fabric before removing the pins on the inside. Now it's time to attach the darning foot. Remove the needle on the machine before you begin, as well as the presser foot. Then you need to remove the shank from your machine. So this is the shank, place it aside, but keep the screw as you will use it to attach your darning foot. Make sure to place the metal bar on the darning foot above the needle clamp screw, and this metal part around where the screw will go. Then fasten by screwing the foot in place. This step is optional, but I found it helpful for me, and that is to lower the feed dogs on my machine. Then change the stitch length to 0 or as low as you can go. I would recommend you to test a couple of different settings on a sample until you're happy with the result. I found that I needed to lower the tension to create a neat stitch. Now it's time to start stitching. Pull the jeans through the machine, make sure that the area you want to stitch lays flat and that no legs or other parts of the jeans are pulling. I often find it helpful when I repair the crotch area to unzip the jeans. This gives you more flexibility whilst making your repair. Start stitching across the grain, moving the jeans back and forth over the hole on the worn out area. As the feed dogs are down and the stitching is set to 0, you need to move the fabric, otherwise the stitches will be created in the same space. Also make sure to not move your fabric too fast, as you do not want to create too long stitches. As the crotch is such a critical area that requires extra strong and utilitarian repair, I'm stitching quite a bit. But if you want a more invisible repair, only stitch as much as you need. Once I stitched across the grain, I stitched along the grain back and forth over the crotch. And then I found it helpful to also stitch along the bias, as jeans are woven with a twill thread. This helps also to create a more blended in look, and you can also stitch in another color here to match the wash of your jeans better. Once you are happy with your repair, just pull it off your machine and snip off any excess threads. I'm gonna also stitch with a 3-step zigzag along the seam, as it was hard to do this with a darning foot. For this I'm using a black thread. Before that I'm cutting off any excess fabric on my patch inside the garment, as well as any excess threads. To repair denim with a 3-step zigzag, you will use your presser foot A, and before I add this presser foot to my machine, I needed to add the shank back to the machine again. The settings for my 3-step zigzag are as follows. I have a 5mm width and a 1mm length, and you can test a couple of different widths and lengths on a sample until you're happy with how it looks. I stitch on top of the seam with my 3-step zigzag back and forth a few times. Once I'm happy, I fastened and removed the jeans from my machine. So here you can see how the crotch repair turned out. As I mentioned earlier, you do not need to do as much stitching as I did if your repair isn't a split seam in the crotch. So now I will show you how the 3-step zigzag repair looked like on this sample. I added Fusible interfacing on the wrong side of the sample, as I would do on a garment. Stitch back and forth with your 3-step zigzag stitch. As with the darning foot repair, you can go both across the grain, along the grain, and along the twill thread if needed. But for a small hole like this, a straight line back and forth is enough. Now I'm gonna show you how to repair denim on a machine with a darning stitch. For this repair you will need an automatic bottom hole presser foot. Your machine also needs a darning stitch. Check your manual if you're unsure. My Unomi DC3050 has a stitch number 9 as a darning stitch. Attach your foot and thread the machine. Put your garment under the presser foot. Make sure your automatic presser foot is fully pulled out. Place presser foot and needle slightly to the left of the hole you want to darn, and then put the needle down and press the foot pedal of your machine, and it will automatically make a darn around 2 cm long and 0.7 cm wide. At least this is the measurement on my machine, and this can be also changed if needed. Just look in your manual for details how to do this. And then repeat across if needed until the darn covers the hole. I really hope you found these tutorials helpful and that you will get around to repair all those holes in your jeans. And if you did find this tutorial helpful, do not forget to hit that like button. And until next time, hej då!